Okay, this took me an unbelievably long amount of time to set up. Why? Because for some reason, if you want to play Minecraft 1.18.2, you can't just use a low budget laptop. Apparently, you need like some gaming computer or something. Seriously, this thing using up like 100% of my whatever. I figured it'd be a good idea to start a survival world just because at some point I'm gonna run out of buildings to decorate on Juno Beach, and I don't play PvP well and commentate. Well, commentate. What kind of commentate? I'm a commentator, guys. No, um, I just don't do that very well. So figured, why not just do a survival world and mess around in it, right? Maybe it'll actually be the dragon for once. I've never actually done that legit. I've done it with the Model 1903 Springfield, but that's with a mod, and I think you can probably guess why that's a problem. Anyways, greetings, I'm Mystery for me. This is episode 1 of Survival Minecraft, but I'm not a Minecraft YouTuber, I'm a Christian theologian. Well, actually a theologian. Oh, I'll overstep my boundaries there. I'm actually a theology enthusiast. I don't know what I'm actually supposed to call myself. Not a theologian. Not a theologian. Oh, okay. I don't think I should be loading new chunks. Oh, wait. Oh, no. 18 chunks is way too high. Anyways, hi, Mystery for me. I'm not very good at this. Anyways, yeah, so I talk about random different Christian topics, different subjects, some of them relevant to the church today, some of them not so relevant, but are just interesting anyways. I also do study on the Latter-day Saints, but that is currently on hold for now because it's a massive topic, and I decided it'd be best for me to just, put in hours upon hours of study into it instead of trying to make a video and then realizing I messed up on the video and then having to come back again and repeat it. So that will be happening in the future. It will happen eventually. It's just I have to get around to doing it. But today I want to talk something more about our church, like the actual church, not the we're quote unquote part of the Christian church. You're not. Okay, you're not. Latter-day Saints are not part of the Christian church. All right, it's not hateful for me to say that. It's just objectively true. All right. But yeah, I want to talk about something within specifically the Protestant church. Although I think it could just be the church in general. It probably is within the church in general. It's just I'm not in a context where I can speak to other traditions. I'm not Catholic. I don't actually know many people who are Catholic. I also am not Eastern Orthodox. I don't know many people who are Eastern Orthodox who I can talk to about this. So um, take it as it is. But this is specifically from my point of from the Protestant Church, especially the one in America. Um, Go figure. The Canadians talking about the American Church. Ooh, wow. This should be fun. But yeah, talking about what it means to belong to a church, because I don't think we have a very good approach to that these days. Like, what does it mean to be part of a church? Um, yeah, and I think that, yeah, because if you notice over the past few years, if you pay attention to any of those studies that come out, you'll very likely have noticed that church attendance has dropped dramatically in the past few years. That's to be expected because of COVID, but I think there's another underlying thing there, not just because of COVID, not just because of that that issue, but also because of stuff connected to it, and also in a broader sense. So let's go into that. Now, when I say belonging to a church, I specifically mean a church, not like a specific local body of believers, not the global church. If you're a Christian, you belong to the global church. You are a part of the church. You're a part of the body of Christ, and so yeah, there's no escaping that. But the thing is that a lot of people they think, oh, well, I belong to this church or I belong to that church, right? I belong to the church on Main Street. I belong to the church that meets every Friday at the local school. It's this idea that you belong to a certain church community. And the thing is that we really don't go about it in a good way in our society today, in our context. Now, yes, people join churches, and yeah, but the thing is that it doesn't really seem that people join churches for the right reason. And it doesn't really seem like people join churches for the sake of actually doing what you should be doing in church. It's just that you join because, oh, it's the Christian thing to do. And I think this is very well reflected in the reasons as to why people have left the church as of late. Why people have decided, no, I'm going to go off and do my own thing. I'm going to, just leave the church. And that comes in the form of perhaps just not going to church anymore, but also changing to another church. And the thing is the reason why this is such a why this is seen is a lot of people leave churches not because their church is bad per se, but they leave churches because they don't like it there. And now, when I say they don't like it there, I don't mean like, oh, it's I don't there's like a toxic community and everything, and not that sort of thing. That is a legitimate reason. But there are other people that are like, oh, I don't like this church for this other reason, and so that's kind of what I want to talk about today. What are the legitimate reasons for leaving a church, and are you really going to church for the right reasons? So there's a number of different issues. I typically like to give like a checklist, but when I find whenever I do that, I forget it. So I'll just go with it as it happens. Yeah, there's some people who say, "Oh, I don't want to keep going to this church because." Which one should I start with? Oh, because I don't like how they worship God. Well, I don't like how they worship God. Now, of course, I want to be careful here. I don't want to say that, oh, just because every single way to worship God is okay. Some of them are not okay, all right? So don't be like, oh, what's to be for me is trying to get us to like go to this church that does like crazy stuff. No, okay, I'm not doing that. Okay, relax. It's not my thing. But maybe it's like, oh, well, I don't really like the fact that they don't use hymns. Bruh, that's the reason why you're leaving this church. You're leaving the church because they don't use hymns. Really? I don't know. I don't know that. That seems rather frivolous to me. Or like, no, I'm leaving this church because they only sing one song instead of like five, and I really like music, and I want them to sing music, but they don't sing music as much as I'd like them to. Like, dude, really? Come on. You're going to leave a church just because they don't do worship in the way that you like it. You see, the reason why this is problematic is as long as if it is honoring to God, and as long as if it is glorifying to God, there is no reason for you to there's no reason for you to leave. Right? Like, okay, if they're like doing some weird incantation that's like definitely unbiblical, and just saying there are biblical chants that you can do, right? But if it's like, we pray also to some other dude, okay, well, yeah, maybe, yeah, in that case, yes, definitely get out of there. But otherwise, I mean, as long as if they're not doing something evil, like, don't leave the church because you don't like how they worship. It's stupid, really, and it's not really how you should be going to church. Because what is church? Well, okay, what is part of the church? Part of going to church is worshiping God, right? You're not worshiping yourself. You're not going to church. You're not supposed to go to church to try and see what you can get out of church, right? That's not the main purpose of going to church on Sunday, worshiping God, right? You're not there to say, oh, I've gotten my fill for the week. Yay! No, you should be going there to say, all right, I've worshiped God and I've given God praise. Now, I'm going to keep doing it, but I've also done it in the community of believers. Right? So, like, these people who are like, oh, I don't like going to this church anymore because I just don't feel it. my man, my man. It doesn't matter if you feel it or not. It's a matter of if you honored God. And if you did not honor God, well, maybe you should consider that maybe a little bit different. Yeah, but if you can still honor God through it, yeah, keep going. There's no reason for you to just drop out just because you don't feel it. All right. Now, so yeah, that's one thing. And again, I'm not saying that just because you don't. I'm not saying you have to stay in the church just because it might harm God, right? Because again, there are certain practices that maybe you shouldn't do, but that's besides the point. In general, if they're honoring God and they're glorifying God, and you're just not feeling it, and you're not getting anything out of it, maybe you should change your attitude towards God. Maybe change your attitude towards what worship is. I don't know, just an idea. Just throwing it out there. Um, yeah. Uh, yeah. Now the second thing is, well, I don't like going to this church because they've they have this certain policy that I don't like. Now again, not all policies are to be treated okay, right? Some policies in the churches are not great, right? So like, um, yeah, I'm struggling to find a good example. But there are people who are like, oh, this church still requires me to wear masks. Therefore, I will not go to this church because they disagree with my politics. And I'm like, okay, 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 kid, no. Right. If you're leaving a church because they disagree with your politics, there's a bit of a problem there, and I don't think it's them. It's more or less you. Right? It's like, no, I don't actually like what the politics of this church. Right? They make me wear a mask, and it's evil. Okay, okay. Look, first of all, I'm not even gonna get into that. I just know if I start, there's going to be people who be like, "Oh no, actually, yes too. It's wrong to wear a mask." Blah, whatever. All right, I'm tired of it. I've heard it for the past I don't know how long. It's makes me lose brain cells, but whatever. No, I'm not going to get into that. But my point is, are you really going to leave a church just because they support something that you disagree with? Right? Again, I'm not talking about stuff like, they believe in um, infant baptism, right? No, actually, not infant baptism. That was a little bit of an edgy issue. Like, I don't want to keep going to this church because they supported Joe Biden, right? It's like no Christian church supports Joe Biden, right? Like, my man. Again, why are you letting politics dictate whether or not you go to a certain church or not? Right? Like, really? Right. Just because they support someone or something, it doesn't mean that they're a bad church, nor does it mean that they are uh, apart from God, nor does it mean that they are evil. It just means that they support something that you don't. And if you ask me, that shouldn't be grounds for you to leave that church, right? Here's why. If you disagree with a policy that they have, if you disagree with a view that they have on something, how about, and I know this might be a little hard for some people, um, but how about instead of ditching them, you tell them, maybe be like, hey, I noticed that you guys have this belief. I have a little bit of a problem with it. Um, I'm gonna, I'm gonna tell you about it, right? The church is not a dictatorship, technically. I mean, God technically dictates everything, but like the pastors are not God, right? The pastors can be wrong, right? If you think that they're wrong, maybe you should go up to them and be like, hey, I don't really agree with what you guys are doing here. Can we talk about that? All right? Because remember, you're placed in your specific community for a reason. God places you there for a reason. Perhaps that reason is to say, hey, I notice you guys have gone off the rails on this a bit. Maybe you could talk about it, maybe talk it out a little bit, right? You are a reasonable person. Maybe instead of just upping and leaving just because you disagree with them, maybe you should take some time and try and talk to them and try and understand where they're coming from and why they're doing certain things. Maybe you prove that they are wrong and they change. Maybe they prove that you're wrong and you need to change. All right? And remember that your politics can definitely be contrary to God's will. All right? Cool. I'm glad we understand. Now, the third thing that some people say is, "Oh, I don't really like going to this church because they're not as cool as other churches, right?" And I'm actually going to expand on this in a second video, but it could be like, "Oh, their speakers not as cool. Their speakers actually kind of lame." I mean, come on, we all know those pastors who are just like, and if you turn to me to this with me to this passage, and then we will go here, and then we all know those pastors, right? Yeah, admittedly, it's not riveting. Sure, it's not like, wow, this guy's like the next Billy Graham or something, right? But really, like, you're again, why are you leaving the church because of that, right? Or like, oh, they have too much silence. There's too much silence. The production is not smooth enough, right? The transitions are lame. Like, really, again, why are you leaving the church because of that? Is there a reason why you're leaving the church just because, oh, they're not as cool as, say, like Hillsong? Their production quality is like terrible, whatever. Like, bro, if you leave the church because of that, that is wow. That really reflects a lot, and I will say it reflects a lot about you and your faith. It reflects a lot about how you view God and how you view worship and how you view your faith. Because if your participation in Sunday worship is dependent on how well organized the worship service is, yeah, you've got some problems. I've nothing else to say about that. You have some problems if that is how you measure up a church. If that is how you will, if that's how you see a church, and you should adjust. You should change. Um, Again, with that being said, I do know that there are some cases where it's like, oh well, these guys are absolutely disrespectful. These guys are like, they don't treat God properly. Okay, yeah, in that case, okay, fine, fine, right. But I'm talking about those cases where it's just like, wow, they don't have this certain other thing this other church has. I'm leaving. Like, really? That's your whole thing. That's okay. Okay. Yeah. No. No. So, in other words, if you're thinking about leaving a church, you need to think carefully about it, and you need to think biblically about it, right? You need to think about why you're going to church in the first place. Like, are you going to church really to worship God, or are you going to church to get something out of it for yourself and nothing else? Are you going to church so that you feel good, or are you going to church so you can praise God and give God the glory that He deserves? Yeah, that's something to think about. Right? Are you going to church because, oh, they support my politics? Or are you going to church, again, to worship God and to serve Him? These are questions you have to ask yourself. And if you find yourself saying, well, more of, less of, oh, I'm doing it for God, and more of, I'm doing it for myself, uh, well, that's things to think about. Now, to close out, to be clear, I'm not saying that, oh, it's wrong to try and get something out of church. Worship is a two-way thing. We not only give things to God, but God also gives things to us. When we worship God, He, He gives it back to us. He also shows us stuff in worship, and He helps us to grow in worship. When we worship God, we also grow and develop as Christians. That's part of how worship works. But what I'm trying to say is, if you are considering leaving the church because of stupid reasons like, oh, they don't worship in the way that I would like, or oh, they don't believe in the same politics that I do, or oh, they don't have as cool of a pastor or as good of a production quality as others. If that's the reason why you're leaving, really, think about it. Stop and think about it. Because is that really how you should be measuring up to the church? Is that really how you should be considering whether or not you go to church on Sunday? Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. If you have any problems with what I said, please leave them in the comments. Reminder, I am not targeting cases like, oh, these guys started preaching the prosperity gospel, but since S2 said, it's not a good idea to leave, I shouldn't leave. No, they start preaching the prosperity gospel, of course you'll leave. The prosperity gospel is heretical. But if it's stuff like, oh, they support mask mandates. Bro, suck it up. Alright? Suck it up, dude. It's like, they're doing the best to protect the congregation. So, don't freak out over it. Maybe. I don't know. Seriously, just for a faith that we talk a lot about grace and love, we don't tend to show it very much to people within it. Anyways, that's it. Yeah. Cool.